Welcome, everybody, to today's Sing to Thrive podcast interview, where we are absolutely honoured to have Mark Patterson join us. Mark is an internationally recognised expert on sound healing. He has received praise from numerous best-selling authors for his uncanny abilities with sound healing and vocal toning. Mark has been a keynote speaker at the expos and conferences all over the world. He has 32 years experience in hypnosis and past life regression and can help you feel empowered with soul-centered confidence to overcome any fears that are holding you back. Mark is also a gifted Qigong healer who uses Qigong to transmute energy or Qi from the unseen realms to the physical realms. Mark is the co-creator of the powerful 12 breath method energy awakening exercise. This was downloaded to him from the angelic realms in November of 2020. Interesting timing there, Mark. And Mark states that there is no other breathing technique this powerful. Wow, that's amazing. Maddie and I are so happy to have you here with us. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited. This is a great opportunity.
It's absolutely our pleasure. So I thought we could start with, I just really want to hear more about your story. You've got an interesting story that I think our audience would love to hear, because you had an NDE, which is a near-death experience, quite young. And I'm curious to know, was it that experience that propelled you into sound healing, or did that evolve much later on? And I guess, how did you come to the realization that you had these profound abilities? So tell us all about that experience, and that sounds
Yes,
fascinating.
yes, and yes. So I have to start before my near-death experience, because as a child, I was very psychic. I always saw things around. I saw lights around people. We call it the human aura. I always knew things about people, things that I probably shouldn't know or wasn't supposed to talk about anyway. And I had encounters with angels. I had encounters with ETs and UFOs. And of course, very few people would believe anything I ever said.
Oh, back then,
And
absolutely.
yeah, especially back then. Um, I was a latchkey kid in Iowa. I grew up with a single parent who, she was working two jobs at times. And so as a kid, I would have this dream over and over again where everything that I wanted, feeling love, feeling like I belonged, Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, Disneyland. I didn't go to Disneyland until I was like 38 or 37 or 38 years old. All those things I wanted, all those things that made me feel love, I always found them inside my bed, inside my bedroom closet. And over again, I dreamed about everything I wanted was inside my bedroom closet. Well, 40 some years later, you realize that the dream was trying to tell you that everything that you want is already within you, within your own heart. Um, Unfortunately, as I turned into a teenager and continued being psychic, I was always told, don't talk about that, shut up, you're evil. My dad always told me that I was possessed by the devil.
Oh,
Don't say
great.
that. Yeah, right, great.
Great messaging from the parents. Oh
From
dear.
parents and
Yeah,
society, and
exactly.
why no one believes you. Why,
Yeah,
don't talk about that. You shouldn't say that. So it's
yeah,
confusing, right? You learn not to, what you're experiencing, what you're seeing, and this is very valid. And so you learn not to trust yourself. So by the time I was 13 or 14 years old, I didn't want to see anymore. I didn't want to feel anymore. I didn't want to hear anymore. I didn't want to know anymore. And the only thing that turned it all off was alcohol. So by the time I was 14 years old, I was consuming alcohol, um, a lot of it. And of course, that resulted uh, at February of 1986 at the Canterbury Inn and Suites in Coralville, Iowa, where I was at a high school party and I decided I was going to impress all my classmates. So I chugged a fifth of vodka, 4 beers, 2 glasses of wine, 3 or 4 wine coolers in about 90 minutes.
Oh, your poor
So,
liver.
Good Lord.
so
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
needless to say, my body went into cardiac arrest from what's called acute alcohol poisoning. And Julia, my skin was purple, black, and green.
Oh, wow.
Good
And
Lord.
yeah, the next thing I know, right, I'll tell a
I
joke
can
about
laugh because you're here and you're alive and well and healthy and happy.
right.
But I'm like, man,
I'll tell a joke about
it's intense.
yeah, I'll tell you a joke about it in just a second here. But so the next thing I know, I'm leaving my body. I'm leaving my body. My body is passed out, unconscious, coma, dead, whatever term you want to use, lifeless, on the bathroom of that suite, on the floor of the bathroom of that suite. And I'm trying to call out to my high school classmates, to get their attention. Of course, my cries for help fell on deaf ears because they can't hear you. And these same classmates were in a circle around me just, an hour prior going, chug, 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 go, 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 go. And yeah, and this happens at high school parties, right? So, or college parties, fraternity parties, right? So then my grandfather, Russell, came to me. He had passed away when I was like 2 or 3 years old. I still have like vague memories of him. And so he told me that I was going home. So I thought that, I really messed this up. I really kind of dropped the ball on this thing we called life. And Russell, I'll just say this. Russell was a hellion. He was hell on wheels. So I can assure you and all of the audience that if my grandfather Russell went to heaven, y'all are going to go to heaven. So,
Hallelujah. I needed to hear that when I was a kid because,
right.
yeah, oh man, some of the belief systems I've had to shift through.
Because you don't go to heaven because of what you believe. You go to heaven because that's where we all came from. You're just
That's
going
what
back.
it is.
Exactly.
Right. So then he guides me into the light, right? And there's this the Elohim. The Elohim is mentioned in the Bible. It talks about those who sing hymns to God. That's what the Elohim does, the angelic realms. And then there were about 7 angels. They were 14 feet tall and 14 feet tall each. They were female in appearance, and there was like a hologram of my life because this is a fractal holographic universe. Everything is based on light, frequency, and dimensional realities that all
Yes.
exist right here, right now. And they showed me my life, and any time that I was angry, resentful, or blamed other people, and of course this is all that we ever do when we're teenagers, they asked me one question, and I want to make this very clear: there's no judgment. There's no judgment in heaven. You're not going to hell. Hell doesn't exist. They asked me, though, how does that relate to love? And everything in life is an opportunity to express love. So the word forgiveness means for giving your love away no matter what happens to you. Now, if you're
Yeah.
always out getting the Jaguar, the Mercedes, the house, the Rolex watch, and it's good to have nice things. There have been times in my life when I've had quite a lifestyle. There's been times when I've lived out of my car twice. And but if you're always out for getting things, you are forgetting who you really are.
Oh,
Because you're not,
that's a great way of looking at it, isn't it?
yes. Yeah. And so you have to realize that there's really no time, especially when you're on the other side. There's really no time here except for we're convinced that the clock on the wall tells us what time it is, right? But in a sense, there's really no time. And all these universes, dimensional realities, Jesus said, the house I live in is in many mansions. He was talking about the multidimensional nature of this universe, but everything exists now. It's kind of like those pictures. You have a picture and you look at it one way and there's one image. then you turn it a little bit another way, there's a different image, and you turn it a third way, there's a third or fourth image. It all depends on how the light reflects back to you. The light that reflects back to you determines what you see, and relates to, and the higher you have your higher your consciousness means the more light that you see, the more reflected light. It's all reflected light. And that's why the Mayans called this an illusion. It's not an illusion because you're not real or hardship isn't real. It's called an illusion because we only see 2% of the light spectrum. Some of us will see, some of us see the auras and sprites and divas and like nature spirits, like I still do. Some of us talk to dead people, but it's just a very small part of the light spectrum that we see. That's why it's an illusion. We don't see the whole picture, right?
Yeah.
So all this is going on at once. Mark, who was in my body from conception to 16, is with Russell. The 7 angels are there. And then there's this being that's 30 feet tall. And this being has a lot of love for me. I mean, everything on that side, on heaven, the light, whatever you want to call it, they love us no matter what.
Yeah.
I cannot put into words the amount of love that they have for you. That how much you are loved, no matter what you do or don't do.
I can feel your heart now. It's just like, oh, so much love. Yeah, beautiful.
So you're loved no matter what you do or don't do.
Yeah.
And they introduced me to this being, 30 feet tall, and they went to this long description about sound healing through sound, sacred geometry. They went through this whole thing about the flower of life. And then they talked a lot about the Melchizedek priesthood and the caste system of the Melchizedek priesthood. The Bible says Jesus was like Melchizedek, and thou shalt be forever a priest of the Melchizedek order. And in one, it's not really a breath because my body was lifeless, but in a flash, the 30-foot being formed an icosahedron and came into my heart and brought me back to life, kind of like the.
Like an
Totally
electroshock.
with you.
Like a
Totally with you.
defibrillator.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, the defibrillators. Yeah, yeah, right. I can assure you, the amount of energy to awaken a dead body is phenomenal.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
It jolted me,
Yep.
and so that's what brought me back to life. So in New Age terms, I'm a quote walk-in, but I'm the same body, but different soul, different spirit. But many years later, I read a book called Hands of Light by Barbara and Brendan. It's about healing through hands and the auric field and the energy centers of the body, the chakras. And Barbara and Brendan says on page 262 that future lifetimes can be placed in the auric field at the beginning of birth and can be taken on if an individual so chooses. So here's my joke. I always joke that I evolved 5 lifetimes with the 5th of vodka. Please do not try this at home. Leave it only to the professionals because you may not get the same results as I.
Oh, exactly.
So in a sense, what's that?
Exactly.
So in a sense, right, in a sense, I reincarnated from the future back into my body.
Wow, what an interesting way to look at it.
Well, but right, I believe that is the best explanation of what happened.
Yeah.
Do I know 100% that's correct? I would say 99.9%, that there was an aspect of me that came back through time and space to be here now.
Yep. And I have heard this before. Yeah, I've heard this happen. I've heard about this before. And it's interesting, even as you're speaking, like I get a sensation through my body when someone speaks a truth. So I similar work to you. You do the past life regression. We do past age clearing and healing. And I know when someone's spinning a story or whether they've hit a core truth because I feel it in my body. And as you were speaking then, I'm feeling that in my body like, oh, wow, this is, this guy's really, his future self's. And when you were speaking, I was thinking, oh, well, wouldn't he just be an aspect of you anyway from your, and then of course you share that. So.
And I love the analogy of prior to that, as a child, when you said the closet, because it's interesting whenever I look at symbolism of our beliefs, whenever we're like shopping for clothes, or all of our clothes represent our belief system. So it's interesting that you kept going to your closet, as in like you kept, finding what beliefs do I have here that serve me, and what can you let go of as you grow.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, because everything is a everything is a reflection of what's within us, from the car that we
Exactly.
drive to the house that we choose, you know,
Yeah.
to all those things. So
Yeah.
for the first 3 days, I was very disoriented. I just kept hearing this voice saying, "You're going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay." But Julia, I have to tell you that everyone looked about this big to me.
Oh, wow.
Everyone, everyone was tiny from the walk-in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
It's like your
and then
perception was still that
right.
future
So
self
Readjusting.
perception.
right, exactly. So then by the fourth or fifth day, everything came in, all the memories. I'm Mark. I'm a sophomore at high school at West High in Iowa City, Iowa. These are my friends. That's my mom. Although I kind of knew it, I kind of figured out that that's who she was. And so, people always ask me, well, what changed about you? I said, well, I became more psychic, unfortunately. However you want to look at it, right? It made me more intuitive.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
more psychic. Yep.
right.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't hear you
So,
properly.
oh yeah, more psychic. Sorry.
Yeah, that
So
makes
shortly after
complete sense.
shortly after my near-death experience, I played baseball. I was actually a pretty good baseball player. So, yeah,
Yep.
right. Um, so, so we were at an all state tournament, and I was with my friend Peter, and so he and his family took me to Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, Door County. It's one of the most beautiful places in America. And why we were there, one night, I just got this message about Peter's sister. And so the next morning I went to Peter's mom and I said, look, you really need to call your daughter and tell her not to come up here. She can't be here. And they had been arguing, these are like the perfect family, uh, was the show, David the Beaver, Ward and Harriet, perfect family, very wealthy, very established. And I was like, no, 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 that doesn't bother me. You don't understand, though. Your daughter can't be here. And then I kind of said the same to her at lunch. And that night, I was like, Miss Gardner, you need to call your daughter now and tell her not to come. Well, they got really upset with me. And so they put me on a Greyhound bus the next morning and sent me back to Iowa. Their daughter was killed in a car accident on the way up. So again, and I carried guilt over that for many, many years. I finally made peace with it a while back, probably 12 years ago. And so again, I was like, this is bullshit. I don't want to see, I don't want to feel, I don't want to do any of it. You did what you told me to do, and look what happened.
Yeah.
So I didn't do alcohol, but boy, I smoked marijuana, sensibilia, hash, Thai stick, every day, because I didn't want to feel.
That's right. It's brilliant at numbing the feeling body.
Yeah,
And
so you don't
also
have to.
impairing your
Yeah,
psychic senses and
Yeah.
yep.
visions.
And so I did that probably from the 16, 17, and going into 18 years old. And around the age of 18, my other childhood friend, Toby, his mom, Patty Lou, introduced me to Jerry Bowman and Joe Albiano. Now, I'll just say Jerry Bowman was a trance channel. Joe Albiani was his assistant. He was an attorney out of Boston, a big guy like Luciano Pavarotti. And many of you probably have never heard of Jerry Bowman. He was a Vietnam vet who became a trance channel. But many of us have heard of Shirley MacLaine. Shirley
Yes.
MacLaine's trance channel was Kevin Ryerson. Kevin Ryerson channeled John the Beloved, or John the Apostle from the Bible. So Patty had all these tapes from Los Angeles, California. Jerry and Joe hosted the Out of the Ordinary show, KIV in Los Angeles, California. Jerry would go into a trance and John would come through him and speak and give profound messages. And she also had a couple of videotapes of him up in Mount Shasta, probably from the mid 80s, 85, 86, somewhere around there. And I listened to it kind of with interest, like, oh, yeah, that's interesting, but not too seriously. And after I listened to John a few times speaking through Jerry Bowman, John would come to me and start talking to me like you and I are speaking now.
Gotcha.
And he would say things like,
Yeah.
we never use the truth to be right. We never use the truth to make others wrong. We never use the truth to belittle other people. We never use the truth to score points for ego.
Oh, wow. I love
Wow.
that.
Yeah,
That-
that's beautiful.
Boy, doesn't the world need that message now?
Right.
Oh
Yeah,
my
he's
God.
right. And he would say things like, if other people label you as inadequate, it's their problem, not yours. A master is not called a master because he himself says so. A master is called master because those who witness him say that he is master. And then the thing that he would say this to me, it would floor me. But I think now, knowing that after 30 years ago, I think he would say this to everyone. He'd always say, Mark, why do you really want to experience your life as anything less than the one we call Jesus? The kingdom of God is within you. Why do you seek anything else? Well, when you're 18 years old, 19 years old, there's too many blondes, there's too many brunettes, there's Nature Boy Ric Flair, there's NFL football, there's college football. And, when you're at that age, the last thing you want to hear is real deep metaphysical information.
Yeah.
35 years later, you go, shit, maybe I should have listened to him more. Maybe I should have, paid a little bit more attention. I will say that John talked to me a lot from 18 to 25, and this past year, he's returned to me in my dreams.
Oh, beautiful.
So he gave me a lot of information, and I just continued exploring and learning. She also introduced me to Dick Sutphin. Sutphin wrote the book "You Were Born Again to Be Together," which was a Simon and Schuster multi-million copy best-selling book, which is about soulmates and reincarnation, past lives, and karma, all those things. And then I remember it was around 1992, 93. I read the book Bringers of the Dawn by Barbara Marciniak.
Love it. Great book.
Yeah.
Channeled by the Pleiadians.
Yeah.
It was just so riveting. I couldn't put the book down. But Patty Lou called me and said, Mark, you got to get this book. This is awesome, right? So I get the book. I'm mesmerized by it. I can't put it down. I think I read it like in 8 or 10 hours. And at the same time, I'm watching these videotapes called The Flower of Life with John.
Oh, wow. Okay. The sacred geometry, learning about the
Sacred
patterns.
geometry, right.
Yep.
And I'm working at this restaurant called 82 Queen. It's still there, down in Charleston. And Julia, for 5 nights in a row, 6 nights in a row, I don't know what it is. Now, if you've never been to 82 Queen, it's in Charleston, South Carolina. Historical restaurant. It's been there since 1982. It's about 15,000 square feet. The property is.
Oh, wow.
It's
Okay.
in three different carriage homes. The foundations of the courtyard go back to 1670. 3 different carriage homes, and there's 11 dining areas. So you could have any night, you could have one of 11 sections, right? You following this? You could have one of 11 sections any given night. So this gentleman ends up in my section 5 nights in a row. The last night he's there with his family, this angelic voice comes to me and goes, Mark, we need you to talk to him. And they're pointing to him about the videotapes you're watching right now. I'm like, yeah, right.
Like, great.
Right. Yeah.
Just what I want to do.
This is what I want to do right now because I've got 6 tables. We have an hour and a half wait. And yes, I am in the weeds. I am buried.
Yeah.
It's a terminology that we use in the restaurant
Yeah.
industry.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I just go, nope. They come back and go, no, we really need you to do this. Great. So I'm not going to do it. So I go to leave the table. I was physically pushed back in front of the table by an unseen force. And they're staring at, his name ends up to be Roger. And he's with his son, Sean, who's my age, and his wife, I don't remember his wife's name, wife or girlfriend. And they go, Mark, ask him now. I'm like, what am I going to ask this guy? So I go, hey, you don't have to be a mathematics professor, do you? Because I'm thinking, what am I going to ask this guy? And he looks at me and goes, Mark, what did you really want to ask me? And so I'm looking at him and going, well, I have these videotapes about sacred geometry, Fibonacci spiral, the Sphinx, ancient. I'm sure you know nothing about it, right? It's like Drunvalo, Melchizedek. You have those tapes. Where did you get those tapes? I have to have those tapes. Like, hey, I'm sorry, they're not my tapes, but I'll call Rosemary in the morning and see if I can get them to you. And so I called her next morning. I go, hey, Rosemary, this guy's had those tapes. He's got to have those tapes. Are you okay if I give them to him? He goes, yeah, sure, no problem. Next morning, I meet him and his son. I meet Roger and his son, Sean. Give him the tapes. Don't hear anything back from him. A few months pass. I go to work one morning, same place, 82 Queen. Voice comes back to me and goes, Mark, we need you to go to your manager now and tell her that you have to go home. Great.
Just great.
Could you just be a little bit more convenient? Like, if
Right.
you want me to do things, just could you time it
Just
better?
warn me before I go to work. I can just call and see.
Why couldn't you just let me know before I left home?
Right. And so her name, the manager's name at the time was Melissa Miller. And she went by Missy. I go, hey, Missy, I guess I'm just not feeling well. Are you okay if I go home? She goes, yeah, we were thinking about calling someone off anyway. Go home. So I leave 82 Queen. I start walking towards my carriage home, the bottom half of one, which was my apartment at the time. And a voice comes back to me. They go, Mark, please go directly to your place. Please do not stop anywhere. Sure. Great. So I walk. It takes me about 20, 25 minutes to walk to my place. As I open the door, the phone rings. It's Roger, who I gave the videotapes to. He's calling me from France. And he says, Mark, how would you like to work with Drunvalo in person?
Oh, yeah, great.
Yeah, of course I would. I go, where's it at? What do I need to do and how much does it cost? And he goes, well, it's in Cope Crest, North Carolina, which is close to here. It's kind of like on the Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina state line, that area. It's up in the mountains here. And he says,
Smoky Mountains.
The Smoky Mountains, yes. Blue Ridge Mountains, Smoky Mountains, yes.
We've actually been there.
Yeah.
We've been to very few places in America, but there we've been.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the oldest mountain range in the world.
Yeah,
just beautiful.
750 million years old.
Yeah, amazing.
So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'd love to go. When is it and how much does it cost? He said, everything's been paid for. Thank you for the videotapes.
Oh.
And so I believe that whether we trust it or not, whether we believe it or not, and it really comes down to whether we allow or resist it, that guidance, that direction, that love is always available for us.
Yes.
I remember Wayne Dyer saying this many, many years ago. He always said that life was never meant to be a struggle, but we struggle with who we are, and then that becomes a reflection of our life, because everything is a reflection of what's going on with you.
Yeah.
So
True.
So profound experience. I mean, this is when Drunvalo was actually still teaching the workshops back in the 90s. I spent 10 days with him there wasn't that many people. I think there's probably about 60 other people there. And, but it was profound, just the amazing information. And of course, I lived in Sedona basically from '02 to 2016, 2017. And the last few years that I was there, Drunvalo ended up moving there. And I'd always run into Drunvalo either at Harris, not Safeway there, in Harris Teeter here, Safeway there, or of all places, Walmart. So yes, you can have a spiritual experience at Walmart of all places, right? Yeah. And so here's kind of the kicker to all this, because I tell people about my near-death experience. And at the time, I think I told two people. That was the girl Kirsten, who I was dating at the time in Charleston, and my best friend Dean Jacobs, who's a chiropractor and acupuncturist. He's the one that got me involved in Qigong back in 90 or 96. And so it was around 95, 96, almost 10 years after my near-death experience, that I'd only told two people about. I got a phone call at 1:30 in the morning from a woman I never met, never spoke with before. I really don't know how she got my number. There's a couple of theories out there. And she calls me and she described my near-death experience verbatim. She described the walk-in, the 30-foot beam, the healing through sound, sacred geometry, Melchizedek priesthood. And then she tells me about my childhood dream over and over again.
Oh, wow.
Being inside the bedroom closet.
Mm.
And people have asked me over the years, was she a real person? I said, yeah, she was real. We met a few times. We met first at the Four Corners Monument. That would have been in 96, just before I went to undergraduate and graduate school. That's it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
just when I went to undergraduate and graduate school, then I met her again up in Portland, where she was living at the time. And that was, I think, 97. And then in summer of 99 was the last I heard from her.
Yeah.
I've never heard from her again. I don't know. I don't know if she's still alive or not, but
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? It's absolutely incredible. And so when did you start practicing sound healing? And was it just through your voice first, or was it using crystal bowls? And what came first? Like, were you doing the past life regression first, the hypnotherapy first? Like, how did all that come about? Yeah.
yes, and yes. So, I've been doing past life regression since 1990 or 91.
Yeah.
I was probably the youngest person to ever attend Dick Sutphin seminar, although best-selling author Sunny Dawn Johnson, who I've known for years, she says that she was the youngest one. She wrote the book.
Okay, it's not a competition.
Not a competition, right? She wrote the book Invoking Your Archangels. And
Beautiful.
we've been presenters at a couple conferences together. So I learned past life regression with Dick Sutphin. I saw him like in 90, 91, 92, 93, 3 times in Sedona, Arizona, and once in Chicago, Illinois. That's how I really learned how to do it. And in fact, I will say to this date that no one influenced my life more than Dick Sutphin. And he was the same way like Drunvalo. The last few years of my life, he moved up to Sedona as well, and we got to hang out and go to lunch together and reminisce about those old seminars when he was kind of in his heyday, back then when everyone was learning about. He trained Brian Weiss, who's probably the most well-known past life regressionist, when he was training all these people. So I just want to go back to summer of 95. I was in Iowa just for a brief time. I was getting ready to go back to Charleston, South Carolina. And that's when she called me. She called me at 1:30 in the morning. I'm talking about, I'm getting ready to go back to Charleston. She goes, nope. This is why I'm supposed to call you. You need to go to Las Cruces, New Mexico. That's where you're supposed to go. I'm just going, no.
You're just like,
I'm going back. Right, yeah.
See, I'd be going, I want more direction. Thank you. Could that just happen? Just tell me where to go.
I was going to say that before. It's like, I know that I've shut off that voice when I was very young, and I'm like, okay, what do I need to do to get someone to just tell me where to go,
Well,
what to do,
you
what's
can,
this
but
instruction?
they'll always ask you what do you want?
I
Because at
know.
the end, it's always about trusting you and what you want. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just like, no, I'm not going to do that. I just called Harvey the
Free
owner
will,
at
they say.
right,
Yeah.
right. I just called Harvey at H Queen. I'm good to go back there. They're looking forward to having me back. I love Charleston. I love the restaurant. I still love the restaurant. And it's like, no, just wait and see. The very next day, I get a phone call from Luis Vasquez. Luis Vasquez was my mentor when I was going through high school, next door neighbor. I had not heard from Luis since probably as a junior, senior in high school. Again, I don't know how he got my phone number. No idea. He's like, hey, Mark, what's up? What are you up to? Luis here. Just want to see how you're doing. What's going on? Hey, I just wanted to let you know that I just took a job as the associate head professor at the psychology department at New Mexico State University in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And I just have a feeling that it might be good for you to come to college here. You know, if you need help getting in, I'll take care of it for you.
Oh
Like
my Lord.
Yeah. Talk
the
about being
very
looked
next
after.
day.
Yeah.
And
It's amazing.
I'm just like, you're kidding me.
The alignment of the
Right.
universe. Mm.
So I ended up going to undergraduate and I attempted graduate school for a year, but there was kind of a mutual agreement between my professors and I that I was not a graduate student. So, but yeah, that's where I went. I ended up going to undergraduate and graduate school at NMSU.
Yeah, right.
Massachusetts.
So how old were
And
you when you started the sound healing? Like,
okay, so yeah, that's what I'm getting to. So
yeah.
around that time, the tone started to come through me, just like the
Ah,
sound
that's,
and ah sound. And part of the conversation that I had, I'll just say her name was Deb, um, was that she said, "Do you have this gift of sound that you were given in your near death experience that you don't understand yet?" And so that's around that time is when the tone started to come through me, and I can feel my persona leave, and the beings, which I would say the hawthorns, which
oh,
you know
okay. Yeah.
when you
Yep.
go to Dendara in Egypt. I've been to Egypt a few times. Those are the beings with the big ears, the big elf-like beings. They're like the goddess of joy, sound, and music. So
Mm.
one day I was just doing, ah, you know, basic sounds, and then all of a sudden this pure tone came through me, and I could tell it was coming through me. It wasn't me, and I could sustain notes forever. I still can. And on August 17th of 1997, I presented the first time publicly the story of my near-death experience and my vocal toning. And we had about 200 people in the congregation. The Master Life Center is a religious science of mind, spiritual church. And after I talked about my near-death experience, people were deeply moved by it. Because I always ask this question to people, and also to your audience. If you only knew that you had 30 days to live, what would you do? Who would you call? And what would you say? And if you know those things, what in the hell are you waiting for?
Mm.
You know? And so after doing that, or what in the heaven are you waiting for? After, doing that, after doing the vocal toning for probably about 5 or 6 minutes, I heard the voices again say, stop what you're doing and look up. And probably about 100 people, almost half the audience in the congregation, they were out. It's like, like when a hypnotist goes, sleep,
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
Wow.
And so from that point on, in between all the restaurant work I've done, because I found that restaurant work is the only thing that gave me the freedom and flexibility to travel abroad
Yeah.
and to do things, otherwise I can't go to work at IBM with my psychology degree as an HR person and say, hey, I'm going to go to Egypt for 15 to 20 days.
See you later.
Yeah,
Right. See,
totally.
no, you
Yeah,
can, but
Yeah,
bye.
it's
yeah.
not
So
as easy.
It's not as
it's not as
flexible.
easy, right? So the sound started coming through me, and this is what I saw over and over again. And it did not matter if there was 5 people in front of me or 500 people in front of me. That tone, which is an A sharp, which is 396 hertz,
Ooh, okay.
would always come through me, and over again, there'd be roughly about half the audience just be out. And we concluded that that tone is so pure that the only thing that the individual can do is focus on that tone. It shuts everything else off so they are able to surrender and let go to a higher dimensional vibrational frequency that's coming through me.
Yep.
And then we noticed that, again, it didn't matter if there's 5 people or 500 people in the room, that sound seemed to have its own consciousness, its own awareness, meaning that
Interesting.
it would go to each individual person's greatest point of pain. If person A had pain in their neck, it would go there. If the person behind them had pain in their hip, it'd go there. If the person to their left had pain in the lower back, it would go there. It would go to each individual person's greatest point of pain and dissolve it and break it up. And then the
Yeah.
other thing that we saw over and over again is that people would call me or they'd get a hold of me and say, that night I slept so good. I never slept that well in my life. And I said, the reason being is because that tone clears your energy field out. Because if you're carrying all the stress throughout the day, the week, the 6 months, the last year, it's hard to let go and sleep. Because the thing that the person does, when they rest at night, is that they're letting go. They are trusting that they will wake up again in the morning. It is when people are letting go of all their fears.
Yep.
Now, Neuromagic in Sedona, Arizona, analyzed my vocal toning with a $40,000 computer software program.
Okay, I wondered about this.
Oh,
I was going to ask you if you'd done that.
Yeah, so it found that my toning would put the alpha,
Yeah.
delta, theta, and alpha, delta, theta, and
Theta.
beta waves all in the most harmonious ratio to
Right.
keep people in optimal mind function.
wow.
It was pretty fascinating. It's really interesting. But as you know, if you're a singer, this is why sound is so important. I mean, the word universe means one song. The word person is Greek for through sound.
Oh,
The
Oh,
Hopi
that's cool.
the Hopi and Anastasi taught that grandmother Spider Woman sung the web of the universe into existence. The Hopi and Anastasi legends are that the elders would sing to the kernels, or they would sing to the crops, and
yes.
of they would produce kernels of corn the size of most men's thumbs. Of course, the book Celestine Prophecy, James Redfield talks about singing to your plants to make them grow, right? Of course,
Absolutely.
and then in the Judeo-Christian Bible, it talks about in the beginning was the word, and the word of God, or the sound, the frequency, the vibration of God. But here's why sound is so important to you and I and the planet. There's a farmer in Wisconsin named Dan Carlson. Dan Carlson's wife had cancer. She had breast cancer. They found and they discovered Rife technology. Rife technology is the idea that you can run a sound wave through a tumor and break it up.
Yep.
Why does this make sense? Because this is what medical doctors already do. When someone has a gallstone or a kidney stone, they run a sound wave through it and they break it up and dissolve it. Well, the same thing is like viruses are crystalline in structure. I remember going to Ireland in 2005, and there was an alto, soprano, and soprano out on the streets of Dublin. It was probably about 45, 50 degrees out because it was February, and there's like a light mist. As you know, if you've ever been to Ireland, it almost rains all the time. And their voices were so angelic, so harmonic, Of the 30 to 40 people that were around them, we all immediately dropped to our knees. It reminded me of the Elohim that I heard when I crossed over. That's how angelic and powerful it was.
Wow.
So, you're talking about frequencies, and so so they break up viruses, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so Greg Braden on a sonogram shows 3 Chinese healers using Qigong, dissolving a golf ball sized tumor.
Yep, I
Edgar
saw
Casey, the
that.
famous,
Yep.
yeah, it's on video, it's a sonogram. Edgar Casey, the famous psychic, said that sound would be the healing modality of the future. So let's go back to Dan Carlson. He discovered right technology because that was the only thing that really cured his cancer, or his wife's cancer. So he became fascinated with cymatics. Cymatics is from Hans Jenny. You run sound waves through a natural thing, and it produces a very specific geometric pattern. All things innate in nature produce geometric patterns.
Exactly.
We would call it, or I would call it, the grid, the energetic grid of that living thing. And so when that butterfly dies, it goes back to that grid. When your dogs or cats die, they go back to the grid of that pattern. The dog grid, the cat, whatever you would call it. All these things produce geometric patterns. This is more validated more recently with messages from the water by Dr.
Masaru Emoto. Yeah, Masaru
Right.
Emoto. Yep.
Right. So he's playing around with frequencies, right? So he finds out that when he runs a 5,000 hertz frequency through his fields, just like the Hopi and Anastasia do with their voices, it generated a 400% greater yield across the board.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you want to talk about the solution to world hunger? It's sound. The sound could basically solve anything.
Well, it's sound is really the solution to everything because we are sound. And it was interesting when you were speaking before how when you did the vocal toning and that it would affect people in different parts of their bodies. Well, because we are energetic, and if you've got pain in a certain area of your body, well, that's just a lot of contraction, a lot of density in the energy field. And the tone is just, it harmonizes the energetic structure of the body and shifts that out. And I wanted to ask you, when you're channeling the tones, when those tones come through you, because I know when I sing, like when I'm teaching, it's a little bit different because you're there and you're instructing and you're teaching. But when I have the opportunity just to drop in, it's a different feeling. And my whole heart, I open, and my body, it's like a body activation where I start tingling and I can feel when that happens. And I know other people can feel me, well, because we're all energy and they're picking up on that. But I was wondering, does that happen to you? Is it a distinct feeling and you just know, oh my God, I'm connecting and that's so beautiful?
Yeah, I can always feel me leave, and I always leave to the left and they come in.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's different.
I'm switched around here, all right? So they always leave. I leave to the right and they always come in here to the left.
So that's definitely inviting in, allowing in another energy to work through you. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's quite
different. So I want to go back to Dan Carlson for just a second, because this is why this is so important. So Dan Carlson became fascinated with everything in nature. What is it vibrating at? What's its frequency? What are all these sounds about? So he found out that when birds sing and chirp in the morning, they sing at 5,000 hertz. They're literally singing life into the planet every morning. When crickets chirp at night, they chirp at 2,000 hertz. They're literally closing everything down at night. Everything is based on harmonics, frequency, and sound in nature.
Yeah.
That's why sound is so important to you. The sound, people will talk about the sound of creation. You got Buddha, Krishna, Yogananda, Baba, Yeshua, or actually
Sananda.
Sananda. His name was probably Yahuwah. I believe his name was Yahuwah. Definitely wasn't Jesus. Jesus.
Or Yeshua.
or Yeshua didn't exist until the 16th century. So they found, along with cymatics, that when you do the ah sound, and I'm not trying to be, I don't know, politically incorrect here, but when most people like release for an orgasm, they make some people like ah sound, right? So
Yeah.
the ah sound, when you run the ah sound through an oscillator, it produces the Sri Yantra, which is the Hindu symbol of God. It doesn't kind of look like it, or maybe if I turn that angle. Now, when you do the ah sound, it makes that sound time and time again. So the frequency of the Sri Yantra, the Hindu symbol of God, and ah are the same. So that is the sound of creation itself. And then when you do om, when you om, you're releasing it to the void because it has to go into the void.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
like the womb of the female. That's where the sperm and egg meet. It's like the void. That's where
And
creation.
it's an interesting, uh, it's interesting because because we work with people all the time, helping them to free their voice, the R, you can always tell how contracted and held back someone is by the sound of their R. If they can, or, it's usually just gets stuck. I did a session here this week and it was like, okay, sing down to the trees. They're holding on. And when we're holding on, that's a contraction in our field. And so then we're not flowing because we're toroidal fields, we're energy. And every sound, and I wanted to say to you, just this week, this morning when I woke up very early, the birds are very loud here. I was thinking about, the birds are waking up everything. They're bringing everything, the stomatas underneath the leaves, the waking everything up.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
And
what
then
they're doing.
2 nights ago, I'm like, man, the crickets were so loud here. So I took my phone out and I just left it over there and recorded the sound. It's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I just stood out there because it's a habit I'm in. If I'm on the computer a lot, I'll go out and stand on the earth for a good 10 or 20 minutes before I go to bed, just to help shift, any sort of EMF energy and just to get grounded and just, connect with the sky and the stars and the life out there in the dark. It's a beautiful practice. I love doing that. So knowing what you know and all your experience, how important, I'd love to hear your perspective on how important is it for people to free their voice, because I know from personal experience that when you free your voice, you free your life, because this is so connected to our belief systems.
Yeah, so I can just talk from my own experience because I was always told to shut up, don't talk about that, don't say anything, on and on and on. And I remember a friend of mine who was very psychic, and she told me that I had a past life where I was the jester of the court. Me being a jester, can't imagine. I make people laugh, trust me. And she said, you were the jester of the court and you had this beautiful voice. And then she went on to say that the queen was very fond of me and my voice, perhaps a little too fond. So the king had me beheaded for having a beautiful voice. And I took it kind of like, right, exactly right. So I took it kind of as, well, yeah, sure, that's possible. And then when I was leaving Sedona to move, so I lived in Charleston twice. I lived in Charleston from 92 to 96, and then again from 2016 to 2020. I was leaving Sedona to move back to Charleston for the first time in 20 years because I wanted to go back there for a long time. And I'm like just brushing my teeth, kind of getting ready to start the day. And I hear this voice, and this is a really thick English accent saying, "You pretty little fool. My wife will never hear that beautiful voice again."
Oh,
Whoa.
Yeah, that one dropped me to my knees, and that, yeah, yeah, that got a few tears out of my
And
body. But
so I'm curious, was this I'm lost on the timelines. Was this this is after you started past life regression and after you started
this
using your
was,
voice more?
yeah, this would have been 20. I was still doing vocal. I've been doing vocal toning since 1997,
Okay. So
right?
this was after
But
you started using your voice and activating it more.
but pe but people have told me for years, and I finally have now started to accept this, that I have a beautiful singing voice.
Oh, we'll
You
have
know,
to hear you.
uh, you bear like Elvis, Tom Jones, something like Frank Sinatra.
Cool.
My voice is a little hoarse right now because I've been talking a lot lately. So when I get into that state and I can sing, but it's taking me for a long time. So I'm getting to answer your question now. We absolutely do hold ourselves back. We hold our voice back because we're afraid of rejection. We're afraid of being misunderstood. We're afraid of being shamed or ridiculed. And to answer your question, how powerful is the human voice? It is the most effing powerful thing that we have on this planet. You do not have a more powerful tool than your own voice.
I know.
You can,
I know.
and so
I
many of us,
know.
and so many of us have been taught, not to speak up, not to say anything, not to whatever. But I want you to think about this. I want the audience to think about this. You are a multi-dimensional being that before you incarnated here, you were fully authentic, harmonized, galvanized. You were awakened. You had all this, you were source energy. You did not, under any circumstances, come to this planet not to be anything less than powerful. No one benefits from you being poor. No one benefits from you being broke. No one benefits from you holding yourself back. No one benefits from you not being the person that you're meant to be. It is okay to outshine other people. It is okay to be in your light. It is okay for your voice to be heard. Your voice is meant to be heard. And yes, your voice can move mountains if you give yourself permission to do so.
And that's the key. Permission. Allow.
Permission.
And
That's
if there
right.
was a mantra for that, it's the I allow myself to be authentic. Because do you know, you would know this, the authentic, the emotion of that,
The Hertz
thank
frequency
you,
of authenticity is higher than love. Yeah.
Right.
so when we're in that authentic, and that's why I saw this in my own life when I started being really authentic, my body started to heal. Because I had a
Absolutely, yeah.
lot of issues with my liver and my kidneys and my gall and a lot of anger from childhood stuff. And as soon as I started being authentic, everything started improving. And again, it's that frequency. And like you said, when we need to be able to just fully relax, because everything's tied in with a sound and frequency, and our brain waves in particular. If they're sitting at a certain frequency, the body can never go into homeostasis and healing. And that's why something like what you do with the vocal toning is so powerful. And with the singing, what we do, it's like opens the feeling heart, raises your energetic frequency, and then you're tapping into higher dimensional thought forms. Because when we are
And
low,
information,
yeah, we're just getting low vibrational with, tapping into mass consciousness of fear. If you were sitting down there, getting your vibration up and holding that, you can do that through voice. And
Yeah,
that
absolutely. Yeah,
voice tone. So do you have any recordings that you've done of your tonings?
oh yeah, there's the thing that we found though is I have Sennheiser microphones, and I have the
Yeah,
mixer
it's
board
never
and
the
things like that.
same. Yeah.
It's never the same. The quality doesn't come through. And I played around with Zoom, and I just cannot replicate it to the degree that I want it to, that I feel that it needs to be, to have an effective sound healing session over the internet. I know there's people that do it, and maybe it'll be refined a little bit, but in person, the sound healing is so much more effective. But yes,
Absolutely.
I do have MP3 files of me doing vocal toning, chanting out the names of God, which is what Tom Kenyon originally did, the Garbandana.
Yeah, yep. I know Tom's work. Yeah, beautiful.
And then I did I do the Tibetan throat singing.
Cool. That's actually really tricky. I saw just 2 days ago this I don't know if it was an X-ray view of a woman's profile of what the tongue was doing when you're throat singing in comparison to when you're normal singing. It's amazing how it like bends and molds in the back of your throat to change your vocal folds. It's really was trippy to get that visual. It made me understand so much more like the technique behind it and how it makes those sounds and those overtones. It's really interesting.
Yeah, because the body's the instrument, isn't it? The body is the instrument, so it's knowing how to use it. Yeah.
But this chakra is the last one to open. The other chakra can be fully open. This one can be fully open. Your heart can be fully open. But this is the doorway.
The throat.
Yeah. And it's usually the last one to open. You know, I've reached to the point where I've accepted all the things that have happened to me. They're part of my experiences.
Absolutely.
From being violated as a child to all the things, the encounters, ETs, and all that stuff. It's who I am. It's what made me. And you have to realize the past is done. It's done. And if
it's done, and it's always an opportunity to grow.
Always an opportunity to grow. That's right.
Yeah,
it's an opportunity to ask that question you said before from the angel beings. You know, how does this experience relate to love?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And so, you really have to you have to know that you have your own voice. You have to learn to be one with you. You have to learn to be in alignment with your most harmonic, powerful self. And that is, learning to say yes to you, yes to who you are, yes to your gifts, yes to being who you are, because there's no one else that has your codes. There's no one else that has your light codes.
Yep.
No one else. I mean, not only is it okay for you to outshine other people, but there's enough room, there's enough space, there's enough opportunity for everyone to shine.
And I always look at it as when we can step into our authenticity, it's like you're being a way shower. You're just, because it's part of what we do with our work. It's always inviting people to unfold, keep letting go of the fear, because there's really only two states for us to be in. It's fear or love. Yeah, it's that simple. And it's sitting with why am I reacting this way? Okay, let's just break this down. And what can love do now? And using the voice. I mean, one thing that we do is we encourage people to write a positive opposite, because one of my gifts is being able to tune in and really feel and hear what someone's core belief is. And I've been trained by Maggie Landsman, and I've been doing this a long time. She's an amazing being. What do we call her? A highly evolved being, a Heb. And once you've got, because again, the belief that you've taken on, and it might be, I'm not smart enough, whatever your words are, creating the positive opposite to that, it starts changing the sacred geometrical pattern, the pattern that we are, because everything is patterns, changes the pattern of that. And then that starts affecting the physical body, along with the neural pathways, along with the epigenetically, what it's doing to all of our cells. There's so much that happens when we just sing a simple mantra, or when we use our own voice to vocal tone and heal our body.
Yeah, and I think that in saying yes to yourself, one of the things that one of the most empowering questions you can ask yourself is, because if you think that you can't sing, or you think that you can't do these things, then ask yourself, what do I need to do that would allow me to see that I am capable of doing, what can I do that would allow me to see that I am in fact capable of doing this?
Yeah.
I think that's a really empowering question because
Yeah.
as
Absolutely.
Dick Sutherland always said, the question or the answers are always there if you're willing to ask the right questions.
And also give yourself that space to actually hear the answers.
Yes. Yeah.
Very
That's the
important
problem.
part.
Yeah. Right.
We can all
right.
ask questions, but if we're not still and present enough in our own being, in our own body, then we might miss the answers. So,
Yeah.
And then
and
I
I'm
just
really sorry, go.
go. No, go, Maddie.
I'm really curious how you've tied Qigong into this and because we're all about merging, like we've merged this, well, Mum originally merged this past stage clearing and healing process and modality with singing. And it's a really powerful combo. And my only experience and knowledge of Qigong is the Egyptian sun salutes, the postures of power. And I used to do them every morning. And I'd hum at the same time and kind of would get into this really meditative state while moving my body with Qigong and humming. And I just wonder, like how you tie in Qigong with everything you do.
Okay. So, a lot of stuff happened in 95 and 96. So
It's
that
when
was
I
around
was
the time
born, so special time.
So I was introduced to Qigong by my friend Dean Jacobs. He's still in Iowa City, Iowa. And about 4 years later in El Paso, Texas, which is just south of Las Cruces, New Mexico, where I was going to undergraduate and graduate school, I went to a weekend program with Bruce Francis, BK Francis, Bruce Francis, or they call him Sumar. And I watched my favorite movie of all time. You'll understand this in just a second. My favorite movie of all time to this date is the original Star Wars, The Force Jedi.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Francis, 1999, El Paso, Texas. Bruce Francis was paralyzed from the waist down. He was told he would never walk again. He started by building balls of energy between his hands. Not only does he walk, he's like a 7th degree black belt. Was the only Western white male to allow to train with the Shaolin masters in Tibet.
Wow.
And I watched Bruce Francis, just like I'm watching you two. I watched Bruce Francis throw 12 people in a row, 5 to 7 feet, and I'm talking smacking a wall with his mind. He stood 2 to 3 feet behind him. And I became really curious because after my NDE, I had countless dreams. And also there were experiences from my childhood that said there's something powerful around me. And so after my NDE, I always had dreams about being like a Jedi, like telekinesis, like moving objects with my mind. To me, I thought
It's so cool.
Yeah.
I just thought that that's what you're supposed to do. Right, exactly right. So if you listen to Billy Carson in Forbidden Knowledge, he says that the Jedi from Egypt, and that they are aligned with they came to Egypt from Orion. They were aligned with the Orions, and every 1,000 years they return to the planet. Well, here we are at like the other 13,000 year cycle. So and now recently, all this stuff has come back to me. The dreams of being telekinesis, and I've thrown people off balance. I've thrown people almost to the point where they will fall over, and it just seems like it's on the cusp, that it's right there.
Yeah.
Because I believe it. Because to me, it's like that's what we're supposed to do. This is, it's that that we have these abilities. So I did Qigong off and on for many years. And then oh my God, I have to think about this when we were in Florida. 2008, 2009, I was in Southwest Florida, and I met, and Dean got me to go to this 9 breath empowerment workshop by Jeff Premlick, Supreme Science Qigong. Kind of got a little bit more interested in Qigong. And then in 2018, I don't know what it was, but I was like, I'm doing this. And so since 2018, I've been doing Qigong for about, if not two, at least 3 hours a day. And then in November of 2020, towards, kind of in the COVID was kind of in the middle of peaking and coming down, but things are still like not open and stuff.
Yeah.
I was teaching class via Zoom at Bliss Spiritual Co-op down in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina. And as I'm teaching this class, all of a sudden everything downloaded, this breathing technique. And I've never had anyone pass out on it. I've had people get real close, but I did a sweat lodge with the Wallace Black Elk in 1997 in Monticello, Iowa. And that thing was intense because he was like, okay, you white people, you want to do a sweat lodge? Let's go.
He is a sweat lodge.
They're like a rebirth, honestly. It was intense.
Yeah. Intense. And I found that when I really get into this breathing technique, it gets that intense. And the idea is that so many of us, when we breathe in and we hold our breath, we're trained to release the breath because we freak out because we think we're going to die. So in the 12 breath empowerment that I teach is that I don't want you to breathe out. I want you, in fact, when you think that you can't breathe anymore, I want you to breathe more in. And I want you to hold it again. And then when you think that you can't breathe out anymore, I want you to breathe more in. And then when you think you can't hold it anymore, I want you to breathe in more. And this is what really expands your cells. This is what gets your telomeres to be elongated, because your telomeres are at the end of the DNA, and they start off long and they go short until you know.
That's how you age. It's the aging process, right?
Aging process, right?
Yeah.
Well, when I was 47, my telomeres tested to the age of 37. So
that's cool.
Again, you're not your age, you're not your age, you're your energy. And everything is about energy and consciousness. It's like, where are you at? So what this breathing technique does is it expands your capacity for oxygen, which is very important when you sing, to be able to hold notes. And it gets you, you just feel like you're the Energizer Bunny. Energizer Bunny gets you going.
Oxygenates you, yeah.
Oxygenates your cells, right?
Yeah.
And this is, I'm not trying to get people to be David Blaine or a Navy SEAL, but the longer that you can hold the longer that you hold your breath, it's pretty, because your breath work is what every religion, from Hindus to the Native American shamans to the tribesmen of Africa, the Aboriginals, they all talk about how important breath work, that breath, or
connects you.
It connects you to spirit. And, the more that you can control your breath, the more that you can also go into a very deep meditative state. But Qigong's translation is cultivating life force. And if you study the Chinese people, they have the longest lifespan, the lowest rate of diabetes, the lowest rate of cancer, the lowest rate of heart disease, the lowest rate of obesity, which in America we are all at the highest. They don't generally go to medical doctors. Their medical modality is Qigong. It's been in China. I've seen 5,000, 7,000, 10,000 years, 7,000 years.
Sorry, Mark, was there a period where that was banned in China?
Still is.
Yeah.
Still is. Banned.
Still is, yeah.
Practice Qigong.
Yeah, they're really trying to madly get the Western way in there, and the food, because it's the...
Right, yeah.
The glyphosate flour and the white sugar and the so many
stuff.
All the stuff that.
Just sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. Nan.
I'm just so fascinated with the difference between breathing in more and more, because obviously when we sing, one of the trickiest parts about your breath work with your singing is that it's a really short inhalation. You want to try and get as deep as possible to hold a long exhalation. And so what are the different benefits between like actually holding your breath as opposed to holding your out breath like you do with singing?
Because when you hold your out breath too much, it's harder to sustain the note.
But
Does that
that's
make
what the
sense?
sound is when we're pushing air out.
Well,
So like that's
to
kind
me,
of,
if you're pushing in, maybe we're just switching
Oh,
terminology.
yeah, yeah.
You're
So
pushing
you're
okay.
in.
saying engaging the core,
Right,
because
right,
you're engaging the core to,
Yeah, as your lungs contract, as you let go of all
right,
your
right,
air.
right. So just
Okay.
so, and the other thing is I've done diaphragm. I don't know. I never learned this, but I did it naturally. I've been breathing through my diaphragm since I was about 13 or 14 years old, and I cannot tell you how many times I went to the doctor and they tell you to breathe, and I'm breathing correctly, and they're telling me to breathe. Why
Opposite.
aren't you breathing? It's like, yeah, right. It's like I am breathing. I'm not
Yeah.
just breathing into my lungs. I'm breathing into my stomach first, and then bringing up my air to my lungs.
Yeah.
So
it's a real feeling. And for me, it's you soften the belly. You soften the belly when you breathe in. So it's just everything expands, and then you're engaging the belly to create the energy for, the voice is coming up through the vessel of the body into the chamber of the head because it resonates there and out, through the vocal cords.
Yeah,
But
I find it
it's,
difficult to actually soften my belly. I actually soften like as if you can soften bones. My rib cage. I kind of like I let my whole rib cage relax and it
well,
kind of
that's,
that's right.
expands a bit on my stomach too, but I have to focus on that. I can't focus on expanding my lower stomach. And I find
Yeah,
that
it's hard
helps a
to
lot of
sing
my
if you're all
clients as
tensed
well.
up.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
true.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So,
So
do you have any tips for people? I'm just mindful
well,
of the
we
time.
can just we can do something together real quick. So if you
Yeah,
just want
let's
to,
do something
Yeah,
that
let's
people
do
can
it.
join in with. And
all right. So just yeah, just breathe
to,
in through your nose and then just kind of you're just gonna have to follow me.
yep,
So you
yep.
just breathe in through your nose and hold your mouth. I mean, breathe in through your nose and hold your breath. All right. So to breathing out, I want you to breathe in as if you were hold your breath again. Instead of breathing out, breathe in more. Hold your breath. Breathe in more. Hold your breath again. Breathe in more. Hold your breath. Let your breath out slowly. Now that immediately makes my third eye area tingly. It makes my whole body light and tingly.
I could
And
feel
that's
my
just
heart like,
Yeah.
whoa.
oh, it's cardio exercise without doing cardio.
Yeah.
Especially when you get into the actual 12 breath, the full
Oh, that
experience.
would be cool because
Wow.
we do that in Kundalini yoga, that
Yeah.
breath work. And I did two big sessions this morning. And I was remembering as you were facilitating that then that, these deep divers that can go down and hold their breath for 11 minutes, the spleen, once you get to a certain point, if you don't panic and you stay relaxed, the spleen floods the body with oxygenated blood.
Yep.
And that's how they can stay down so long. And that must be some sort of genetic ancestral
Survival
memory,
instinct.
Survive.
or we've evolved. I don't know, but
It's
yeah,
definitely a mind game, isn't it? Because yeah, is that key? I mean, with what you're talking about with the divers, it's key not to panic. But even when you're doing breath work, even though it's like not holding your breath for that long, it's about keeping your mind calm and not getting into that like
And not letting the
panic
monkey
mode.
mind say, I can't do this, I can't do this. Just sitting with, not even allowing
we
that.
do the in the 12 breath method. We do the Mula Bandha, the root lock, and we really
Oh,
Yes,
pull up
like in
yeah.
Kundalini yoga. Yeah.
yeah, like in Kundalini.
Beautiful.
Which,
So
at the end of the day gives the brain a job
right,
because you're
exactly, yeah.
focusing on something and engaging everything in your body.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
So
that
I know
tension
we,
also, yeah. I just did want to ask you, because there's so much anxiety and stress in the world, I'm not stressed, but because
Right.
our whole thing, I do get stressed occasionally, but these, what's happening in the world, I believe one of the key things for all of us is to focus on what we want to create and not focus on all the drama that's out in the world, because there's a lot of psyops going on. There's a lot of stuff that, yes, you can be aware of it, but staying with self, what's best for me right now, and focusing on what we want to create. So I wanted to ask you, do you have any tips for the listeners on that, and also any tips on if they do get anxious, like what's a quick thing that you use?
yeah, I mean, America's on edge right now because this is election night here in the United
True.
States,
I was very aware
uh,
of that. Yep.
right? And so a couple of things is you are eternal. The soul is eternal. And the Course in Miracles says nothing that is eternal can ever be threatened.
Mm.
And so you are always going to be here. You are always here. And there's really, the famous quote from Wayne Dyer is, there's really nowhere to go. If you look at nowhere, it also, depending on how you break it up, it's
Now
now here.
here. Yep.
So now you're here, and then there's really nowhere to go. And the other thing is self-love, self-forgiveness, self-love, self-forgiveness, self-love, self-forgiveness. And you have to realize, well, people go, well, I did something really bad, or something that bad happened to me. Never take it, just realize it was just a situation.
Mm.
That's it. It's just a situation.
And can I say, I remember, because I've been doing healing work for 23 plus years, I remember with this forgiveness thing, it's like, well, we are only ever capable of bad things, not a judgment, but let's just say things that are out of alignment, when our hearts are closed. And when you tell yourself that, like if someone, like as a child being violated, it's like knowing, well, that person's heart was closed, because if someone's heart's open, we can't harm another. It's just not, it's not our being. It's not,
Not our nature.
we
Right,
won't.
right, exactly. Yeah.
So it's
So
just, yeah.
it's just important to realize that you're eternal and
Yeah.
that nothing eternal
Beautiful.
can ever be threatened. I just want to remind everyone, since we're talking about Kundalini, and February 27th of 2022, over at the Publix grocery store over here, and I'm getting to a point of the story. I'm in the grocery store shopping for things, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I had this like Kundalini energetic download. I
In
mean,
the shops again.
right, yeah. I mean, that's right. It's like, this is what I'm getting at. Is that God is everywhere. There's nowhere that God is not. That's why you can experience God at Walmart. You can experience God at Publix. But the most important place to see God is in the mirror.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's
Beautiful.
nice.
I love
I
that.
know. Maggie always, one of our mentors, she's always like, we're all just God having a go. We're all God having a go. Just love, just love what you do
Yeah.
and don't judge
Right,
it.
the way that God comes to know the world is through you.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And
You are
so
source energy.
to
Yeah,
wrap
go.
this up, how can our listeners and viewers get involved with some of your work online? Like, do you do, what
Yeah,
can we get
my
involved and
website,
support you?
my my website is my name, but with a hyphen in the middle. It's mark-patterson.com.
Yeah.
If you don't put that dash in, you're going to get a famous jeweler in New York City.
All right, we'll link it. We'll
Mark-
link it when we
Yeah,
post this podcast.
mark-patterson.com. I'm also on Instagram. I think it's at Sedona Mark Patterson. But I have found, and I talk about resistance, people were after me for a long time to do sessions over Zoom. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to lose the personal experience. But I found like with counseling sessions, hypnosis sessions, that they're just as effective.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Jeffrey Wilson's one of my favorite. Wilson's one of my favorite teachers, and he says once you get that mindset, that knowing, that faith, the faith of a pure mustard seed. Yeah, my dad was a holy roller, so I sometimes come across as a minister. So that faith of a pure mustard seed. There's no difference. There's no difference between healing one person and 10,000 people. The only difference is in your mind.
Yeah.
That's what, Yoda said, tell you I will see things I do. We fail because we don't believe. And there was so much truth in Star Wars. It was,
Yes, that's right. And they were really
all the
connected
messages.
to the spiritual side of it and the whole light, the Jedi, because it's a real
the
thing.
Jedi, the light versus the dark, the galactic wars.
Well, Mark, what you just said then really landed. I've never heard that before. And it's
What's
if you just having that absolute belief, if you're healing one, you can heal 10,000 like that.
Well, it's the same thing.
It's the same,
It's the same thing. There's no difference, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So that's like never underestimate the power of even just healing yourself.
oh,
When two,
most
right, or
most
healing
important.
yourself, or when two or more are gathered in my name, that's when the energy really
Yeah.
magnifies. and really
Yeah,
gets going.
amazing. And so with your breathwork sessions, do you do like courses with that? Like what does that look like as an offering?
The whole 12 breath method is on the
Yeah.
website. All you
Okay.
have to
So
do is
people
watch
can
the
just
video.
Oh,
watch the
right.
video.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Amazing. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it might be fun to do that together one day on Zoom. If you're up for
It's
that.
pretty powerful. We've had people on Zoom do it before.
Isn't Zoom like I'm fine because we just launched the Sing to Thrive Healing Hub, and I'm finding the connection with the community in there is. I did not think I would enjoy it as much as I have been. That's what I wanted to say. So it's like, yes, it's absolutely awesome working in person with people, and I agree with you with singing, vocal toning, not so much vocal toning, but singing especially, and well, sound in particular is you just don't get the same frequency coming through, and the timing issue with Zoom, but it's still very effective. It's still
Very
But
very
it comes
effective.
back to that, like with what we're doing, it's about,
Allowing
empowering
Getting
people
information
with
out.
tools to heal themselves through voice. So
Yeah.
and it's that like it doesn't matter because you can create that own synergy within yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think on my my YouTube channel, I think there's a couple video clips of me singing.
Okay. Amazing.
so.
Oh, that's awesome,
We'll check
because
them out.
I need your YouTube channel because I couldn't find it.
I think it's Sedona Sound Healer.
No, I couldn't find it. I was
I'll send
looking
it
for
to you.
that.
I'm pretty sure it's Sedona Sound Healer. I'll
All
send
right.
it to you.
Send it to me. That'd
Well,
be great.
we'll link
share
it when we
that.
post everything for.
So is there anything else
Amazing.
you wanted to share before we finish up?
Yeah, just remember that God, Buddha, Jesus, Krishna, whatever you want to call it, it's within you right here, right now, today. And don't wait to die in order to experience it. You can experience it
Yeah.
now. It's right here. It's always present. And it's so strange that we teach people to be afraid of God. You should be God-fearing. No, you should be God. You should know that God is embracing you. God is allowing you, that
Yeah.
higher power, whatever you want to call it, loves you. Love cannot judge.
Yeah,
Love cannot
exactly.
condemn. Love, you don't need to be saved because you've never been lost. You don't need to be forgiven because you've never been condemned. You don't need to
Yeah.
seek eternal life because that is what you already are.
Yep.
It's just mind-boggling to me, but that presence is within everyone,
Yeah.
everyone.
That's right.
And and source is meant to be fulfilled, abundant, lively joy. Don't suppress yourself. So there's a story of a woman that went to do a dolphin swim, and she got into her judgments at the dolphin swim. She didn't want to do the dolphin swim because the dolphin was captive. And I've done a live dolphin swim, and I've done a captive one. One was outside the Keys of Florida, and the other was in Key Largo, also in Florida. They're both empowering. They're both amazing. And my friend Jamie Price in Sedona, because she's like a medium, a psychic, and the lady asked her about that. Why didn't I go through with that dolphin swim? And because I just felt it was bad. The dolphin was captive. And the message that came through Jamie was, did you ever think that you robbed the dolphin of you, that you robbed the dolphin of its ability to experience you?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So don't rob the world of you. You're meant to be seen. You're meant to be heard. You are all wonderful human beings with so much to share.
Yeah. So beautiful and so true.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Yes, thank you for your time.
Let's stay
your
connected. I
wisdom.
will share your all your information, and take care and good luck with everything happening over there with the elections
And the aftermath of the hurricane too.
Yeah. And I'll be in touch.
The healing.
All right,
healing
sure.
times.
All right.
All right.
Thanks
So
so much
much
for your
love.
time,
All
Mark.
right, thank you guys. Bye now.
Bye.